Jones and Billy left a small store at the end of the world. Well, rather on the outskirts of town, after another day working at what they did best, robbing small businesses with little security. But even a criminal needs to hydrate, so Jones sent Billy back to grab some water. However, when Billy entered the store, he was met with a scene straight out of a nightmare. Bodies strewn about, blood everywhere, and a silence more terrifying than a bank account at the end of the month. Yet nothing shocked Billy more than the appearance of a surviving little girl. Being a so-called upstanding citizen, he decided that witnesses were a problem and took care of her in the most brutal way possible. Meanwhile, in a quiet town in Indiana, Tom Stahl was starting his day like any other restaurant owner, opening his establishment and dealing with the most intense drama of his life so far. His son Jack getting into a spat with Bobby, a generic bully who would probably spend his adult life posting passive-aggressive posts on social media. Instead of resorting to fists, Jack opted for well-placed sarcasm, causing Bobby to leave the locker room with his pride wounded. Back at Tom's restaurant, everything was going fine until Jones and Billy decided it would be a great spot for a robbery. They burst in demanding food, money, and probably a bit of dignity they no longer possessed. Tom, initially trying to avoid conflict, ended up demonstrating that he wasn't just an ordinary diner owner. In seconds, he neutralized the two criminals with frightening skill. The moral of the story? Never underestimate a man who makes his own coffee. Tom's deed made the news, and the world finally realized he wasn't just a good cook, but a local hero. Even his wife, Edie, was surprised to see her husband turn into the Batman of homemade food. But as with any fame, there was a price. Soon a suspicious black car appeared, circling their house. Edie thought it was just the press wanting another exclusive about the Ninja Diner owner, but the truth was far more sinister. In the midst of all this, Tom's restaurant became a tourist attraction, and he could hardly keep up with serving customers. That's when a group of well-dressed men walked in, looking like they'd just stepped out of The Godfather. The leader, Carl Fogarty, looked at Tom and called him Joey Cusack. Tom, obviously, denied it and even tried to show his ID, but Carl gave that menacing smile of someone who knows more than he lets on and left, leaving a mystery hanging in the air. Worried about the situation, Edie called Sheriff Carney, who promptly went to investigate Carl and his henchmen. The sheriff, probably tired of the quiet life in town, was excited to finally have a major case to solve. But Carl, being a respected crime boss, responded mockingly and walked away unpunished, because, money can buy a lot of things. The sheriff then alerted Tom about who Carl really was, a heavyweight criminal from Philadelphia who always managed to escape justice. Even so, Tom continued denying any involvement with Joey Cusack, as if insisting hard enough would make the truth change. But what really caught everyone's attention was how he always seemed to know exactly how to fight, defend himself, and handle criminals. Strange, isn't it? On Sunday, Tom decided to go to his restaurant to try to calm his mind, only to see Carl's car circling once again. Now, anyone in his position might have called the police or beefed up security. I'd probably lock the door, pretend I didn't see anything, and look for a good lawyer. But Tom, already feeling that something bad was coming, ran home and asked his wife to grab a shotgun from the top of the cupboard. Because, as any action movie teaches you, if there's something that solves problems, it's a good old shotgun. Tom finally got home first, but Edie, his wife, already had that "we need to talk" look on her face, and that's never a good sign. Meanwhile, their son Jack discovered something shocking. His father had a shotgun. A few days later, Edie and Sarah, the couple's daughter, went to the mall. Everything seemed calm until, out of nowhere, Sarah disappeared. Edie went into full panic mode, probably imagining that she'd have to explain this at Thanksgiving dinner. Fortunately, she found the little girl before anything truly serious happened. But Carl was there, ready to drop a bombshell. Tom wasn't Tom. He was Joey Cusack, the most feared assassin in Philadelphia. And even more, it was Joey, Tom, who had given Carl that one-eyed pirate look. Edie, who obviously thought she had married a mild-mannered diner owner, grabbed her daughter and left without even picking up a pretzel. Meanwhile, Jack continued to be tormented by the school bullies, led by Bobby, the expert in insults who probably dreamed of becoming the next villain in The Karate Kid. They called Jack's father a murderer and, well, Jack wasn't having it. After the fight came suspension and, of course, an epic scolding from Tom, who tried to lecture on how violence doesn't solve anything. Quite hypocritical, as Jack, clever as ever, reminded his father that he himself had dealt with thieves in a rather unpeaceful way. Tom got so furious he slapped his son. But things worsened when Carl returned, this time taking Jack hostage to ensure Tom would come back to Philadelphia. Tom agreed to the deal as long as Jack was released. As soon as his son was safe, he reneged and warned that he wasn't going anywhere. Carl didn't like that and ordered his henchmen to seize Tom by force. Big mistake. In just a few minutes, Tom eliminated them, but not before taking a bullet from Carl. Before finishing Tom off, Carl asked if he had any last words. And he did. "I should have killed you in Philadelphia." And it was Jack who finished the job, killing Carl and ensuring that this story would remain even more traumatizing for a teenager. Tom ended up in the hospital and there Edie finally managed to extract the truth. Tom was Joey Cusack. She was furious, and rightly so. After all, no one wants to discover that their husband has a dark past. After that, Tom became an outcast in his own home. Jack wanted distance, and the entire town began treating him as if he were some kind of mobster. To make matters worse, Sheriff Carney showed up to investigate the bloodbath caused by Tom. But, surprisingly, Edie decided to help and assured the sheriff that her husband was just a poor, innocent man, a victim of circumstances. The sheriff, uncomfortable with the situation, left, probably wishing he'd never left his house that day. In the middle of the night, Tom received a mysterious phone call. It was Richie, his older brother and the crime boss of Philadelphia, inviting him to a family reunion, only this time with guns. Richie threatened to come to Indiana personally if Tom refused. And since Tom didn't want more people to know about his double life, he got in his car and drove to the city of brotherly love. Once there, he was received by one of Richie's henchmen, who took him to the crime boss's grand mansion. Of course, Richie wasn't happy at all. He made it clear that Tom's disappearance had disrupted the family business. Tom, ever the diplomat, suggested he would return to working for him as a professional assassin. But Richie had another idea. He wanted Tom dead. A very bad move, old friend. Tom eliminated all the henchmen in record time and, without even letting Richie launch into a dramatic speech, killed him as well. And thus ended the career of one of Philadelphia's greatest crime bosses. Back home, Tom arrived just in time for dinner. The atmosphere was tenser than at a post-family fight barbecue. But after a long silence, Jack offered food to his father, and Edie motioned for him to sit down. It seemed that, somehow, the family was willing to move forward, leaving the past and the bodies behind. The moral of the story? Never underestimate a mild-mannered diner owner. And more importantly, everyone deserves a second chance, even if that chance involves a murky past of murders and an absurd number of people killed along the way. This film was directed by David Cronenberg, famous for his body horror films, but here he ventured into a story about identity and violence, showing that even a small mistake from the past can come back to haunt you. Now, do you think Tom Stahl should have told the truth from the beginning, or was he right to hide his past? Leave your opinion in the comments, and now I leave you with this fantastic video to watch and keep binging the channel. See you there.